Hello friends, Cowboy Jobu here with the Jobu Sports Report, and as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Jobu Sports Report. And I especially want to thank all of you great fans out there who joined in for the live stream, and especially you fans that hit the super chat. Now, of course, I'm getting ready to go to bed because, I've got a day job. But before I go to bed, I couldn't sleep any better without hearing Stephen A. Smith bloviating about my Dallas Cowboys. You talk about a man who's obsessed. That would be Stephen A. Smith. Let's go to the tape and see what he has to say about Dak Prescott.
The Cowboys season ended with a tough loss to the Packers, but Dak Prescott isn't dwelling on it, telling the Dallas Morning News that they're just getting started in year one. We just scratched the surface. I know we've been hitting these off-season workouts, and we're just excited for what we can be as a team. On that note, we welcome our friend Ryan Clark back with us. How we doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
Good to have you with us. I'm going to start with you, Stephen A., because this is your team. Will Dak and Zeke have a sophomore slump?
Well, I don't think they will, but their team will. I mean, the fact is, when you look at their losses at the defensive backs position, their defense might be even more porous than it was last year. And it showed signs of being decent and what have you, but Claiborne and others are not there any longer, and we'll see what they do with it. Offensively speaking, do I expect Zeke to regress? Why would I? He's a young lion. He runs the football behind that massive offensive line. I think that he could have another 1,800-yard season. I think that's very, very plausible. Dak Prescott not having Tony Romo, everybody salivating for him, watching over his shoulders to some degree. You could say that's going to have a positive effect. Or because Romo is gone, expectations may elevate now that defenses have a year under their belt to be a bit more familiar with Dak Prescott, more film to watch per se, Ryan. That might not bode so well for him, but I suspect it will because I believe in Dak. I believe in Zeke. What I don't believe is in Dallas's defense, and I don't believe in the idea that they're going to be a team devoid of distractions. They always have something that gets in their way. I anticipate that to be the case again. Plus, they're going to have problems defensively. And as a result, I think they're going to have worse than a 13-3 season. I'm not going to call it a sophomore slump because I think they'll still compete, if not flat out win the division. But it's not like they're going to win a playoff game or go to the damn Super Bowl. Let's not get too excited.
Well, I see what you mean. I mean, you could say they'll regress because 13-3 is a tough record to get. And the Giants and Eagles seem to have gotten better. You expect they'll be better, at least offensively. The Giants did some things, and even defensively in the draft, as did the Eagles, really. And they looked like they were at a tipping point, being really good if they can keep that together, stay healthy. So maybe the Dallas Cowboys, and by the way, Jason Witten's a year older, and you're right. Who knows about the defense? So maybe they regress in terms of their regular season record. But a couple of things, Stephen A. Number one, their 13-3 record wasn't merely luck. It actually represented an excellent team. In fact, if you look at the NFC last year, wire to wire, the Cowboys were fundamentally the best team in the NFC. They were, if you look at the point differential and everything, they were winning because they were supposed to be winning because they were simply better than everybody else. Bad matchup with the Giants in terms of styles, but the Cowboys were the best team wire to wire in the NFC last year. Now, you could say they're going to regress because you have to get lucky to be the best team with injuries. They found a quarterback that they didn't know they really had when they drafted him. They didn't know how good he could be. Their running back exceeded even their very high expectations considering where they drafted him. And so maybe they won't get as lucky in the key areas they need to get lucky this year to be 13-3 again. However, when you talk about regression or advancing, on the other hand, for the Cowboys, I think you of all people, Stephen A., would acknowledge we're really talking about the playoffs. We know they're going to be good. They should make the playoffs. But if they win and advance in the playoffs, doesn't matter what the regular season record is or what the point differential is. If they win in the playoffs, we will not say they regressed. We will say they progressed.
I think that's just the key, though. We look at Dak Prescott coming into last season. The expectations were different. we can go through a season and throw 23 touchdowns, not throw 4 interceptions. The team really protected him. They didn't really push the ball down the field, which was an issue for this team as it got late in the season. Dak needed to make some big throws late in games, and they had to start getting in that mode of letting him open up the offense. They're going to do that from the start this year. Now, you're not coming in, oh, he was a 4th-round pick. We didn't expect these things from him. Dak Prescott is now your franchise and a Pro Bowl quarterback. So you're going to expect things. And I think Stephen A. also had a great point when he talked about now how teams will approach them. Obviously, coming into any game against the Dallas Cowboys, it's going to be about stopping the run, Ezekiel Elliott, and that great offensive line. But teams will have to start attacking Dak Prescott. That will be the place where we will rush the passer. We will lock up on Dez Bryant outside. We won't let Jason Witten get the little option routes. Dak Prescott is going to have to win games. And I don't think they're going to be a 13-3 team. Before this team now, when we talk about, like Max said, progressing, when you speak of this team being better than it was last year, you have to win playoff games. Tony Romo was a good enough quarterback to get this team into the playoffs. He had opportunities to win games. He had opportunities late in seasons to put the team in the playoffs. It's about making those plays when it counts. And the reason they lost to Green Bay was not Dak Prescott. It was not Ezekiel Elliott. It was the defense. And now you have major losses on that side. So I think more is going to be heaped on to this second-year quarterback. And this is going to be a prove-it year for Dak Prescott. Show me that it wasn't a fluke. Show me that we haven't made a mistake by letting Tony Romo go. Show me that you can do the same things, but be better, be more of a force.
Brian, didn't you see that against Green Bay? The defense let them down early, and Dak led them almost all the way back in a game that looked like it was over. In fact, it was reminiscent in its way. It wasn't reminiscent because it happened first, but it was similar in its way to the Patriots against the Falcons, where it just looked like this game is over. They're getting routed, and because of the greatness of the quarterback, and Dak has a lot of Tom Brady, young Tom Brady in him to me. More mobile, yes, but a lot of that just don't make mistakes, take what the defense gives you, never get flustered, be a good leader, and took them almost all the way back on Aaron Rodgers' Green Bay Packers. To me, that bodes very well going forward.
No, listen, I'm not saying that Dak Prescott doesn't have the goods to do it. I just think it's different when the expectations change. The expectations weren't for Dak Prescott to win football games. He could be calm. He could be poised. There wasn't a lot of pressure on him. How does he react to the expectations going up for him this year? How does he react to knowing that he's the guy? And here's the other thing. We speak of the Green Bay game. Stephen A. could have went out and threw the ball against Green Bay. I mean, we saw what happened the next week against Atlanta. This team was depleted in the defensive backfield. They were that bad. And so I'm not saying that I discount what Dak Prescott did from a poise standpoint, from the ability to stay calm while his team was down. But he's going to be asked this year to do that week in and week out.
Let me chime in here in this regard. You got to remember, they lost Brandon Carr, Barry Church, J.J. Wilcox, Mo Claiborne. Now, some of those dudes weren't the best. We understand that. But that's still a career 224 starts. And one of the things that we don't mention nearly enough, we're constantly talking about the players. Sometimes we don't talk about the coaching. We look at Dallas, and remember, even though their defensive coordinator, former Lions head coach, did a good job last year with this defensive unit, they really go after it, they play hard or whatever. When I bring up the dysfunctionality that exists perpetually with this organization, how distractions somehow come about, when you're talking about bringing new bodies in, you have to acclimate them to a system. There's going to be growing pains. Growing pains with a sophomore quarterback, growing pains where you're going to struggle and you're going to put more of the onus on the offense. We assumed last year, and rightfully so, that the offense was sort of, cushion the defense to some degree because we're running the football effectively, so not as much of a load was going to be on the defense. But now you're going to want them, you're going to want to hide them even more because you're trying to get dudes acclimated to a new system and a new environment.
By the way,
I think that could end up working against Dallas.
I have a question about that. So Dallas doesn't have a good secondary, right? Defensive backfield isn't good, but then they lose the whole thing. On the one hand, you need people who know what they're doing back there. On the other hand, they couldn't get it done. Why not try new guys? And in addition to that, in today's NFL, your secondary's got to be able to win matchups individually. They got to be able to cover guys. So maybe it's better just to have better athletes in those slots than veteran players. To that you say what?
Well, I don't necessarily believe that the Dallas Cowboys play a defense where you have to win matchups, play in and play out. Honestly, we saw Anthony Brown lose some of those matchups last year. Who will be the starting left corner now that Mo Claiborne and Carr are out? Rob Marinelli did a great job with having less than a lot of people do. He comes from that Tony Dungy cover 2 type scheme, not having to necessarily have great players around. But we saw last year when it came down to making stops, they couldn't do it. And that was with Morris Claiborne having some injuries. That was with Barry Church battling some injuries. J.J. Wilcox gets hurt against Green Bay. I don't know if the guys they have now are good enough. So I agree with Stephen A. It's going to put so much more pressure on Dak Prescott because these guys that they have playing now aren't better than the guys that left.
So obviously advantages to having a year under your belt and disadvantages that the whole league, bless you, has a year of you under their belt as well. They have the 10th hardest schedule heading into the season. Ryan, appreciate you. We will.